Good afternoon. October 15th, 2013 meeting of the Oklahoma City Water Utility Trust will be in order. First item of business is the approval of the minutes from the October 1st meeting.
Move approval. Second.
Motion and a second to approve the minutes. Are there questions or comments? Hearing none, voting please. Minutes are approved. Next item, item 3, is the consent docket. Are there items to be considered?
Second.
A motion and a second to approve the consent docket. Are there items to be considered separately or staff comments on any of them?
Mr. Chair, I have a question, and I apologize for asking. I should have known this answer a long time ago. But on item 3B, it has to do with Oklahoma City and the McGee Creek Authority, and we're going to use the loan proceeds estimated at $2,619,252. What kind of loan are those proceeds from?
Mr. Chairman and trustees, many years ago in 1992, the McGee Creek Authority issued bonds to buy out the contract that was in place with the federal government for repayment responsibilities for constructing the McGee Creek Authority reservoir and dam, pump station, and pipeline to reduce the total cost of the project and at the present value amount. In order for those bonds to be issued, they needed a backing of an entity that had a high enough credit rating so they could issue those bonds at a reasonable rate. The Oklahoma City Water Utilities Trust at that time agreed to have a loan agreement and a credit provision for that, and so that was built into the financing. So the amount of funding that's necessary to fund the McGee Creek, that's not the part that Oklahoma City pays for its share, is funded through this annual loan amount. So it aggregates up until such time as sales for those waters are made to bring into the McGee Creek Authority to repay that. So they're accumulating. We've had meetings on this and with past trustees. We could have some more on that to talk about that in more detail. That's basically what that's for.
Who made the loan to whom?
The McGee Creek Authority issued the bonds, the revenue
understand
bonds.
that part, and
the Oklahoma City Water Utilities Trust entered into a funding agreement with McGee Creek and Aquit at that time. And so that is a part of the financing for the bonds.
On this particular loan, the Water Utilities Trust is loaning money to the McGee Creek Authority.
But it says we're using loan proceeds of $2,600,000.
This is an agreement between the Oklahoma City Water Utilities Trust. Each year we add to the loan. So there's an amount outstanding already, and we're just adding the annual transfer of funds for the portion of funds that are not provided by Aquit for its share of the water. Under the McGee Creek Authority, each of the member participants of the McGee Creek Authority are responsible for paying their proportionate share for the financial responsibilities of funding the budget. And they pay for that by using the water. Oklahoma City Water Utilities Trust gets a right to use that water if it makes those transfers till those are repaid.
Well, I think you're trying to put a gallon in a quart jar, but that's okay. I'll let the thing drop now. Thank you.
Other questions concerning the consent docket? Hearing none, voting please. Consent docket's approved. Next item, item 4, the concurrence docket.
Move the concurrence docket subject to individual consideration. Second.
Are there matters to be discussed separately on the concurrence docket? Staff comments? Hearing none, voting please. Concurrence dockets approved. Next items for individual consideration. The first one's item 5A. It's an RFQ for consultant services for Tinker Air Force Base Municipal Aviation.
Move approval. Second.
Motion and a second to approve. Discussion.
Just a question, is the Water Trust reimbursed for that cost of being a consultant?
If we are successful over time, we may recover those costs, but this is definitely a prospective,
And we recover it through the cost of the water that we provide?
yes.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Hearing none, voting please. RFQ is approved to be advertised. Next one is a resolution receiving the McGee Creek Authority budget, capital improvement plan, and pay plan for fiscal 13-14.
Move approval. Second.
Motion and a second on item 5B. Are there comments or questions?
Mr. Chairman, the change in this budget is 7% over last year. The change is entirely related to true costs of the capital program for things we don't feel we can postpone. As you know, the McGee Creek Authority was built, is more than 30 years old at this point, and we've run into some problems with foundations at the headquarters building, which is quite large, including our maintenance shop. The hydroelectric generation unit requires repair, and some culverts have succumbed to soil corrosion and are being replaced, in addition to some valves related to the hydro generation facility. I do recommend that we take care of those things at this time because they are things that are deteriorating and will continue to get worse if we don't.
Questions or comments? Hearing none, voting please. Resolution is approved. Next item's item C. We're going to need executive session.
Mr. Chairman, we could update the trustees on the latest developments if they're interested in meeting.
I think we should do that. We've had a change in the situation, so I think Councilman Ryan and I heard it this morning, but for the other two trustees' benefit, it might be well to do it. We have a motion to enter executive session.
Move to executive session.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to enter into executive session. We'll hold that to the heel of the docket. Voting, please. Next item is item from trustees. Any comments from trustees? General manager report, status report.
Just quickly, it is of course raining across much of the state today. That's had very little impact on the western part of the state where we got a little bit of rain. It's having more impact in southeastern Oklahoma. That rain just hit the southeast lakes around 9 this morning. So we're seeing a little bit of runoff. The Atoka and McGee Creek are up about 2 inches so far, but seeing good runoff. We're always pleased. Otherwise, demand remains seasonally low. We're, I think, for this month, about 30,000, or probably 30 million gallons behind the previous October, probably because both last October and this October were pretty average. In September, we sold 315 water meters, more than in 2012, and thus far, we're essentially the same as we were last year, which is an adequate report, I think, on growth of the customers.
Marcia, I think we got our numbers, or we missed a word in the edit. It says precipitation was 1.95 inches, and it says this was 2.11 inches above the normal. Is that supposed to be below?
My
the
mistake,
normal?
it certainly is.
Okay. That's just making sure there was not some special water flow calculation math I was missing.
Any other comments? Hearing none, we will adjourn to executive session. Not adjourn, recess. Go into.